This happened about 2 weeks ago. I'm 32, and I usually work as a freelance graphic designer. I took a pet-sitting job to make some extra cash while living alone in a quiet suburb. The neighborhood seemed nice. The houses were tidy, the lawns were manicured, and the big oak trees shaded the streets. I thought I'd get some peace while watching over an aging dog named Max for my friend's relative. I've never stopped thinking about it. The first night was normal. Max curled up next to me on the couch, and we both fell asleep. But on the second night, things changed. I noticed Max staring at the basement door. He growled softly, his eyes fixed on it. I didn't hear anything from below. Maybe he just missed his owners or felt anxious in a new place. I shrugged it off. As the week rolled on, things started to get strange. I caught glimpses of shadowy figures through the basement window when I was cleaning up after Max. A chill ran down my spine. When I looked closer, nothing was there, just shadows and darkness. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was the light or my tired eyes. Then, there were the noises. It was around midnight when I first heard them. A quiet tapping echoed from the basement. It was faint but felt like it responded to me calling Max. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but it happened again the next night. My heart raced as I tried to focus on the TV, but those strange sounds refused to let me go. One afternoon, I flipped open the pet record book to write notes. But there were scribbles I hadn't seen before. They looked like scratch marks, uneven and frantic. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. The house felt different now than it did when I first walked in. It was like it was watching me, holding dark secrets just out of reach. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe it was just a playful dog's antics, but deep down, I felt something unsettling linger in the air. The basement door loomed behind me, heavy yet unyielding. I wanted to know what was down there. Or maybe I didn't. On the last night, as I turned off the lights, I felt a strong pull to look back at the basement door one more time. It could have just been my imagination, or maybe there was something deeper tied to this house. I felt curious and scared at the same time. Then I heard it again. That tapping, it was louder this time. It was on the door. The soft rhythm echoed in my ears, almost like a heartbeat. Each tap drove a spike of dread through me. My legs felt heavy, and I stood frozen, unsure of what to do. It wasn't just a noise anymore. It became a summons. I knew I couldn't ignore it. I felt the fear wrapping around me, urging me to confront whatever lay behind that door. Each tap was like a countdown, nudging me closer to the unknown. I took a deep breath, feeling the cold air on my neck. All I could do was step forward. I took a step closer to the basement door, my heart pounding. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. I pressed my ear against the door, hoping to catch a hint of what was happening on the other side. The sound stopped. Silence swallowed the space, amplifying my nervous breaths. I hesitated, caught in a web of fear and curiosity. I wanted to turn back, but something compelled me to keep going. I reached for the doorknob. Its cold metal sent a jolt through me. I twisted it slowly, my palms sweaty. The door creaked open, revealing only darkness. "Max, come here," I called out, needing his reassuring presence. He stayed curled up on the couch, staring at me with wide eyes. It was like he knew something I didn't. I looked back at the basement, its blackness yawning wide. I switched on the light. The bulb flickered hesitantly before casting a weak glow down the stairs. The steps were steep and worn, leading into an abyss. Every instinct told me to turn back, but I felt drawn down, pulled by an unseen force. I took the first step, then another. The air felt different here, thicker and colder. The light barely penetrated the darkness, but I could see faint outlines of old boxes and furniture shrouded in dust. As I descended, my heart raced, each beat echoing louder than the last. That was when I heard it again, louder this time. From somewhere deep within the basement, a frantic scratching sound began. It was rhythmic, almost like a breathing creature desperate to escape. My stomach tightened in response, and I froze. What was making that noise? I reached the bottom of the stairs and scanned the room, adrenaline coursing through me. Shadows danced around the edges, and I felt the urge to bolt back upstairs. Something wasn't right. I walked further inside, drawn to the far corner of the room where the noise came from. Then I saw it. A small door set into the wall, barely noticeable. It had a rusty latch like a tiny gateway to another world. The scratching was louder now, and I realized it was coming from behind that door. My breath hitched in my throat. Caught in a spiral of fear, I hesitated. Logic told me to stay away, to ignore it and simply go back upstairs. But curiosity clawed at me, demanding to know what was behind that door. I was torn between the need to escape and the irresistible desire to confront the unknown. I approached the door, my hand shaking as I reached for the latch. Just as I was about to unfasten it, a crash echoed through the basement. The sound felt like a jolt in my chest, pulling me from my thoughts. Panic surged within me. "Max!" I shouted, my voice breaking the tense atmosphere. I turned to run back up the stairs, but the moment I did, everything went dark. The light bulb overhead flickered and died, plunging me into blackness. In the silence that followed, I could feel the urgency grow. I needed to get out. I stumbled back the way I came, trying to navigate the chaos of shadow and confusion. That was when I sensed it, something moving in the darkness behind me. I spun around, dread pooling in my stomach. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel a presence, something lurking just out of sight. My breath quickened. I pressed my back against the wall, praying it wouldn't hear me. Was it an animal? A shadow of my imagination? Or something worse? I strained to listen. The scratching sound was gone, replaced by an unsettling silence. I took a deep breath and tried to focus. I needed to get to the stairs. I took a cautious step forward. The floor creaked beneath me, echoing like thunder in the still air. Then I felt it, a cold draft. It whispered past my ear, sending shivers down my spine. I froze, clenching my fists. Was something watching me? The thought made my heart race even faster. The darkness around me felt alive, shifting and breathing. I could almost convince myself it was calling to me, urging me to stay. With a surge of determination, I made a dash toward the stairs, but just as I turned, the tiny door in the corner slammed shut. The sound reverberated like a gunshot, and my heart jolted. I spun back, instinctively ready to flee, but something stopped me. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was raw curiosity mixed with a tinge of courage. "Max," I called out again. My voice trembled, but I had to hear his response. Silence wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. If I could just find him, I could get us both out of here. I had to find him. I stumbled through the darkness, cautious not to trip over the tangled mess of debris. It was hard to keep track of my surroundings. Just about then, I noticed a faint glow coming from the corner where the little door had been. Was it my mind playing tricks on me? I took a few hesitant steps toward it. The light flickered and pulsed, casting eerie shapes that danced across the walls. I strained my eyes, trying to discern what it was. My heart pounded louder than I could hear my thoughts. As I drew closer, the glow intensified. My breath caught in my throat when I saw it was emanating from a small crack at the bottom of the door. Was there something inside that was causing this light? The scratching returned, manic and frenzied, underscoring the tension in the air. Suddenly, a low growl erupted from behind the door. It was deep and gravelly, unlike anything I'd ever heard. My body went rigid. The urge to flee mixed with an indescribable pull to discover what lay behind it. Before I could consider my options, the latch on the little door rattled violently. It felt as if the hinges were going to burst. Everything within me screamed to back away, but I was rooted in place. If something was in there, it was trying to come out. Without warning, the door shuddered, and then it burst open. The light flooded the basement, blinding me for a moment. I shielded my eyes, squinting into the radiant glow that spilled forth. That's when I saw it. Something small and shadowy darted out, moving faster than I could react. My heart stopped. Whatever it was, it didn't seem friendly. Panic surged through me as I began to back away, but I was too late. It was already racing toward me. I barely had time to react before the creature lunged at me. It was small, maybe the size of a cat, but its movements were erratic and unnerving. I felt a rush of cold air as it zipped past me, and I stumbled back, nearly losing my footing. I leaned against the wall for support, trying to steady my breathing as I watched it dart around the basement like a frantic shadow. Whatever it was, it had sharp, glinting eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. My mind raced as I searched for a way out. I needed to escape, but my feet felt glued to the floor. The creature paused just long enough for me to get a good look. Its fur was matted, dark with dirt and grime, and it had an unnatural elongation of its limbs. "Max!" I shouted again, my voice cracking. I felt desperation clawing at my throat. The creature seemed to understand my fear. It tilted its head at me, its eyes locked onto mine. I waited for it to move, my heart pounding like a drum. Then it sprang again, but this time it leapt toward the little door it had emerged from. It paused on the threshold, glancing back at me. Was it inviting me to follow? A strangest mix of fear and intrigue twirled inside me. I had to know more. I took a tentative step closer, my feet finally cooperating. The pull of the door was unbearable. Maybe Max was in there, or at least some answer about this bizarre situation. But as I approached, the creature hissed. It wasn't a playful hiss. It sounded menacing, sharp like shattered glass. I halted in my tracks. My instincts kicked in, and I felt the urge to run. That feeling doubled when I heard a sudden loud thud from somewhere deeper within the basement. Something was shifting. I turned to search for the source of the noise. Maybe Max was in trouble. My heart raced again, this time with a renewed sense of urgency. The little creature dashed through the door, disappearing behind the threshold. I checked the stairway again, but it still felt like climbing a mountain. The growl from earlier echoed in my mind, mixing with the thud and the sound of the creature scurrying away. I couldn't leave without looking for Max. But there was something ominous about the open door, too. A chilling thought struck me. What if that noise meant something worse lurked in the basement? I took 2 steps back, and that's when I noticed something on the floor. A small necklace glinted in the light, one that looked familiar. It was Max's. My breath caught. How did it get here? And if Max's necklace was here, where was he? I stared at the door, torn between following the peculiar creature or the instinct to escape. Just then, I heard another thud, this one closer, like something or someone was moving in the dark. Fear electrified my nerves as I realized I had to make a choice. I stepped back, ready to flee, when the door slammed shut once more, cutting off my retreat. The darkness thickened, and shadows loomed larger, as if they were swallowing me whole. Then everything went silent. I held my breath, listening. The silence felt suffocating. My eyes darted around the basement, searching for any hint of movement. I could still feel the weight of Max's necklace in my hand, the cold metal grounding me. Then, without warning, a soft scraping noise broke the stillness. I squinted into the darkness, trying to see what was happening. The sound grew louder, increasing my anxiety. It was coming from the far wall, where the shadows danced beneath the flickering overhead bulb. As I edged closer, I noticed a shadowy outline starting to form. It looked like something was shifting there, a large, uneven mass. My instinct screamed at me to run, but I took a step forward, curiosity pulling me again despite the danger. Suddenly, another flash of movement caught my attention. The creature reappeared, darting out from behind the doorframe. It was moving even quicker now, and I was startled by how it seemed to skim over the ground rather than walk. I felt a chill trickle down my spine as its eyes locked onto mine once more. This time, though, I noticed something strange. The glint of its eyes had changed. They now looked almost pleading, as if silently urging me to approach. But how could I trust something that had just hissed at me? I swallowed hard, forcing my voice out. "Max? Are you there?" The words trembled as they left my lips. No answer came, just the unsettling shuffling in the dark. I continued inching closer to the wall, determined to figure out what was hiding back there. The creature moved nearer, too, pausing to assess me, its head cocked as if it could sense my resolve. That was when I saw it, a glimmer of fabric protruding from beneath the shadows. My heart raced as I knelt down, trying to get a better look. It was unmistakably a piece of clothing, something ripped and dirty. I reached out, brushing my fingers against it, and felt the unmistakable texture of denim. "Max?" I called again, my voice louder this time. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I could barely think with that creeping dread building inside me. But my fingers were already tugging at the fabric, pulling it away from the wall. The fabric gave easily, but as it moved, I felt a strong tug of resistance. Whatever was there was still attached. Before I could react, a large silhouette emerged from the shadows, moving quickly toward me. My blood ran cold. The edges of my vision blurred as I stumbled backward. The creature beside me let out a sharp yelp and darted away again. In a split second, I crashed into something hard, a metal shelf. The clatter echoed in the basement, and the disturbance sent the larger figure freezing in place. I squinted through the darkness, instinctually preparing to flee. But what I saw next made my stomach twist. There, illuminated under what little light seeped through, was a face I knew well. It wasn't Max, but it was someone just as familiar. Whoever it was, they were not alone, and their eyes were wide with terror. The person's face was pale, their eyes wide and frantic. I wanted to call out their name, but the words stuck in my throat. It was Julia, my childhood friend, and all that separated us was chaos and shadows. I could barely process how she ended up here. "Help me," she whispered, her voice shaking. Behind her I caught a glimpse of something dark shifting in the corner of the basement. The creature I had seen earlier seemed to hunker down, almost as if it were merging with the shadows. I could feel my heart thudding rapidly in my chest, the fear swelling inside me like a balloon ready to explode. "Are you okay?" I managed to choke out, trying to keep my voice steady. "No, I can't," she stuttered, glancing nervously toward the dark side of the basement. "They know I'm here." I had no idea what she meant by they, but the intensity in her eyes told me enough. Something was incredibly wrong. My mind raced as I scanned the basement for an escape route. The creaking floorboards sounded almost deafening in the oppressive silence. The soft, scraping noise had stopped, but I could still feel something lurking, watching us. "Julia, what happened? Are you hurt?" I asked, taking a half-step closer to her. "They took Max," she exclaimed, desperation spilling over in her voice. "They took him, and I tried to find him, but these things, they won't let me leave." Everything fell into place with those words. Max was missing. The feeling in my gut turned to ice. I didn't understand who had taken him or why. But if Julia had been looking for him, then we were both in danger. The creature I'd seen before slinked quietly toward us, its gaze fixated on Julia. I turned to her, urging her silently to back away. "Julia," I whispered, "we need to get out of here, now." She nodded, but her eyes flickered back to the creature. Then, with a sudden burst of courage, she lunged towards it. "What do you want with him?" she shouted. To my disbelief, the creature flinched but didn't retreat. Instead, it quivered as if conflicted, caught between us and whatever it wanted. I felt a surge of confusion. "Don't!" I shouted, grabbing her arm. "It's dangerous." As we stood there, frozen in that moment, the creature let out a low rumble. The sound reverberated in the walls, vibrating through my chest. And just like that, the lights flickered and then died, plunging us into darkness. Panic surged through me as I felt Julia's grip tighten on my arm. "What's happening?" she whispered. "I don't know," I yelled, heart racing. I could sense movement around us but couldn't see a thing. My instincts told me to run, but in the darkness, I couldn't even tell which way to go. Then, without warning, I heard whispers echoing all around us, a chorus of voices that made my skin crawl. "Run!" I shouted, yanking Julia away from the creature as the whispers grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. We stumbled deeper into the darkness, feeling our way, searching for a way out. I had no idea what was pursuing us, but I knew we had to keep moving before whatever it was caught up to us. Another flash of light flickered on, far from us, illuminating a door. Instinctively, I knew we had to reach it. But just as I grabbed Julia's hand, I heard the whispering voices swell into a cacophony. One sound rose above the rest, clear and demanding. "Stop!" The word resonated in the air like a command. My breath hitched in my throat, face freezing in terror. I was terrified to obey, but something in me felt compelled to listen as the shadows closed in. My body felt heavy as if caught in quicksand. The shadows loomed closer, and I could barely process the command echoing in my mind. My instincts screamed to flee, yet I halted, frozen in place. Julia tugged at my arm, her voice shaky. "What do we do?" I wanted to tell her to keep running, to keep moving. But those whispers filled my mind, entrancing and terrifying. "We can't let them catch us," I muttered, glancing into the dimness behind us. The eyes of the creature glinted in the half-light, hungry and expectant. "Julia," I whispered, forcing myself to focus. "When I say go, we run for that door. We don't look back." She nodded, eyes wide with fear. The whispering had changed, becoming almost soothing. "Stay," it seemed to chant, echoing off the walls, wrapping around us like a shroud. Then, before I could even consider the absurdity of it, I felt an overwhelming force pulling me. I stumbled backward, nearly losing my balance. "No." My hand slipped from Julia's as I recoiled. "Please," she cried, "don't leave me." Instinct kicked in. I reached for her, desperate to pull her back to safety. The room shifted in and out of focus, the shadows swirling like a storm. "Now," I shouted, breaking through the spell that nearly ensnared me. I lunged forward, grabbing Julia's arm once more. We started running. The whispering grew more frantic as we sprinted toward the door. We barely made it a few steps when I felt a cold breeze whip around us, chilling my bones. I glanced back to see the creature right behind us. Its form was shadowy, but I could make out a twisted face, eyes narrowing as if tasting our fear. "Faster," I yelled, urging Julia on. The door seemed so far away, and panic surged with each step as the noise behind us intensified. It felt as though the basement itself was alive, closing in on us. Finally, we reached the door. I slammed my shoulder into it. The wood creaked in protest. "It won't budge," I cried, throwing my weight against it again, my heart racing as I heard the creature's growl just behind us. "Try the handle," Julia shouted, and I fumbled for it, hands shaking. As I twisted, the door opened with an eerie creak. The bright light from the hallway flooded in, pushing against the shadows that clung to us. I pulled Julia inside, shoving her ahead of me as I slammed the door shut behind us. We stood panting in the narrow hallway, the darkness pushing against the light, but there was no time to catch our breath. I could still hear the whispers, now muffled but persistent, fading slowly. "What just happened?" Julia gasped, her back pressed against the door. "I don't know, but we need to find Max," I said, my voice firm despite the tremor inside me. The knowledge that something terrible was happening rose, igniting a fire of fear that I couldn't extinguish. Where could he be? Then, a sound cut through the chaos, a creaking from somewhere down the hallway and a low groan. I turned, heart racing as dread consumed me. "Someone's down there," I whispered. As I ventured into the light, the shadows seemed to twist and bend, shifting behind me, but there was no turning back now. I had to find out what waited in the dark. I took a shaky breath, the weight of uncertainty pooling in my stomach. The groan echoed again, deeper this time, sending chills down my spine. I wanted to reassure Julia, to tell her we could handle whatever was lurking. But doubt gnawed at me. "Stay close," I said, inching forward. The hallway stretched before us, shadows crawling along the walls. I could feel Julia's presence right behind me, her breath quick and soft. With each step the noise grew louder. It sounded almost human but distorted, like someone was trying to speak but could only manage a low, guttural sound. "Max," I shouted, hoping against hope that it was him. No response came. A flicker of movement caught my eye, a flash of something darting in the corner of my vision. I turned, but it was gone. The hallway felt longer than before, closing in around us. My heart raced as I pressed on, instinctively drawn to the source of the sound. "Wait," Julia whispered, grabbing my arm. "What if it's not him?" I didn't have an answer. "We have to check." We rounded the corner at the end of the hall. There, partially hidden in the darkness, was a door slightly ajar. The groaning intensified, and something heavy thudded against the other side. "Max, are you in there?" I called out, my voice wavering. If it was him, I might be able to pull him out of this nightmare. A moment of silence passed, then another low sound. It was almost pleading. Without thinking, I reached for the door handle. It was cold under my fingers, and the moment I turned it, the door swung open with a creak that filled the hallway. The room seemed to breathe, shadows pooling at my feet. Inside, I saw something lying on the floor, motionless. "Max?" I stepped inside, pulsing urgency mixing with dread. My heart raced violently in my chest. That's when I saw it. Handcuffs. They clanked against the floor, lying discarded next to him. "Max!" I rushed forward, but as I got closer everything shifted. The shape on the ground was not my brother. It looked right, but somehow wrong. My stomach dropped. Unease spread through me like ice water. The scared feeling from earlier heightened, clawing at my insides. "Don't touch him." Julia's voice broke through my fog, sharp and panicked. I halted, just inches away. The figure stirred, and it was then that I recognized the face. It wasn't Max, but it was someone I knew. The panic surged again. The realization twisted my gut. It was Daniel, our neighbor from a few houses down. But what was he doing here? "Run!" Julia yelled, and suddenly the shadows erupted behind us, blocking the only way out. I felt a horrifying pressure building in the air, alive with an unseen force. The whispers that had faded now roared to life again, filling my mind with chaotic commands. My instincts kicked in. I turned, but it was too late. Something was waiting, ready to pounce. I braced myself, but fear paralyzed me. I looked back one last time at the figure on the floor, confusion and terror intertwined in my mind. And then everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me. It was suffocating, like a wet blanket pressing down on my chest. I blinked hard, trying to shake the feeling away, but it clung to me like glue. In this void, I couldn't tell if I was standing or falling. Then, suddenly, a sharp light pierced through the blackness. I squinted, straining to make out familiar shapes. As my vision adjusted, I saw I was back in the hallway. But it felt different, more twisted, more alive. I turned to Julia. She was beside me, her eyes wide with fear. "What just happened?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I replied, my heart pounding louder than before. "We need to get out of here." The door to the room was still open, but it was silent now. The groaning had stopped, replaced by an uneasy quiet. Just as I began to step toward it, a cold breeze swept past, wrapping around me like ice. I shivered, feeling the hairs on my arms stand on end. "Max!" I suddenly called again, perhaps more out of desperation than hope. "If you're here, please." A low growl rumbled somewhere deep in the hall. I froze, dread crawling over my skin. It was different this time, deeper and closer. Julia grabbed my arm tighter, her grip like a vice. "Let's go," she urged, pulling me along. We backed away from the door, cautious not to turn our backs on whatever was lurking. I felt the shadows flicker, almost anxious, as if something awaited us in the gloom. "Which way?" I asked, searching for a way out. "That way," she shouted, pointing toward another hallway that branched to the left. The walls seemed to close in around us as we ran, the darkness clawing at our heels. We turned the corner and skidded to a stop. A heavy door loomed ahead, slightly ajar. It seemed to beckon us, a promise of safety or perhaps a trap. I hesitated, uncertain of our next move, yet the growl echoed again, this time sharper and more insistent. "Do we go in?" I asked, my voice laced with panic. "I don't know," Julia exclaimed, biting her lip, "but we can't stay here." Just as we were about to make a break for it, a figure stepped into view at the end of the hall. Panic surged. It was just a silhouette, but I recognized that posture. It was Daniel, or at least the shadow of him. He shuffled hesitantly toward us, and that's when I saw it. His eyes were wide and vacant, as if he were caught in a trance. "Daniel, are you okay?" I called, but he didn't respond. He simply continued to inch closer, a darkness swirling around him like tendrils of smoke. "Get back!" Julia shouted, pushing me behind her. With a sudden rush, Daniel lunged forward, the shadows converging with him. I felt sick as a wave of dread crashed over us. "Run!" I yelled, pulling Julia with me. We sprinted toward the door, my breath hitching in my throat as the growl rose into a roar. Whatever it was right behind us. Then I caught a glimpse of something scuttling in the corner of my eye, small, fast, and wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that something far worse than Daniel was coming for us. Just as we reached for the door handle, it slammed shut with bone-rattling force, leaving us in the dark. I felt the air around me grow colder, as if the walls were tightening, closing in. The growl outside morphed into a cacophony of snarls and whispers that echoed through the hallway. "They're getting closer," I whispered to Julia, my heart racing. "Then we have to go. Now!" she urged, eyes darting for any sign of escape. Caught in a frenzy, I frantically searched for another way out. The shadows twisted, dancing only inches from where we stood. I could barely make out a faint outline of another corridor branching to the right, dimly lit by flickering bulbs. Without thinking, I grabbed Julia's hand and dashed toward it. Inside the new corridor, the growls faded slightly, but the stagnant air was thick with dread. "Do you hear that?" Julia asked, her voice trembling. I nodded, hearing something scratching at the walls like a desperate plea, an echo of the same sounds that led us here. Yet I had no intention of going back. "Let's keep moving," I urged, tugging her forward. With every step, the shadows crept closer, feeling like sentient beings whispering secrets just out of reach. Just ahead, I spotted yet another door, this one made of steel, a curious glint catching my eye. Its presence offered both hope and fear. It looked far more secure than the wooden frame behind us. "Should we?" "What's behind there?" Julia asked, glancing at the door. "Only one way to find out," I replied, my voice a shaky whisper. I reached for the handle. It turned easily, the door swinging open to reveal nothing but darkness inside. Swallowing hard, I stepped into the room, Julia right behind me. The shadows inside seemed less oppressive, favoring the far corners instead. "Is it safe?" she whispered, scanning our surroundings. I couldn't tell. "Maybe it'll lead us out," I hoped, taking tentative steps. To our left lay a window. I rushed toward it, but it was boarded up tightly. Just as I turned back, a low growl reverberated again, louder and more insistent, the heavy thudding echoing through the walls. "It's coming!" Julia cried, panic flooding her voice. I turned toward the door just in time to see a shape squeeze through the closing gap, dark and twisted. Without thinking, I shoved her behind me and lunged toward the other side of the room where a small closet stood ajar. "Hide!" I ordered, pulling the door wider. "Will it help?" she questioned, her voice rising. "It has to," I replied, practically shoving her inside. "Just stay quiet." I glanced around, chest heaving, as the shadows lurked at the door, even as the growls reached a fever pitch, and the scratching turned into frantic pounding. Peering through the crack of the door, I watched as the creature slinked inside, almost cat-like, but with long matted fur and teeth glistening with menace. It scanned the room with those glinting eyes, and I held my breath, praying it wouldn't see me. Julia's hands clasped mine, her palms sweaty and shaking. The creature paused, sensing my presence, or perhaps just sensing something it craved. The scratching on the walls escalated, filling my mind with jumbled thoughts of escape and dread. Then I heard it, another noise behind the creature, a low whimper that sliced through the chaos. My heart raced. "Max?" I whispered under my breath. The creature turned, drawn toward the sound. The whimper came again, and I could see the faint outline of a small, trembling figure behind the creature. Dark fur, wildly disheveled. It was him. Max. This was my chance. With adrenaline surging, I lunged for the closet door, pushing it open wide. "Max." But the creature reacted in a flash, turning feral with unholy grace. In one swift motion, it lunged for Max as I bounded forward. The world froze for an instant. Time lost all meaning as I wrestled with what to do. I couldn't let it take him too. Fueled by desperation, I wheeled around and pushed Max away just before the creature lunged at him, my body colliding with it instead. The impact knocked me back, sending me tumbling across the floor. I desperately shoved myself up, just as the growl turned into chaos. Alarm bells rang through my brain. A realization came crashing into focus. The shadows swirled. They wanted both of us, and they wouldn't stop until they had us. The moment stretched as I looked at Julia. Her panic mirrored mine. "Go!" I shouted, scrambling to my feet. "Head for the other door." Julia grasped Max while I kept watch at the shadows swirling. The creature distorted, caught between pursuit and hesitation, as if waiting to claim both of us. "Now! Run!" I screamed, my voice tearing through the air, and we bolted toward the exit at the other end of the room. The door crushed into the shadows, light flickering past the edge. We slammed through it, escaping into the hallway, the chaos trailing behind us. The growls softened into whispers, echoing taunts, halting my heart. I rallied my strength, not looking back, though the questions swarmed my mind and doubt lingered. Were we really safe? Outside the basement door, we stumbled into a small, quiet room, filled with mundane furniture eerily untouched. I turned back, expecting to see the creature tumbling through the shadows, but there was nothing. Just silence. I glanced at Julia and Max, who was trembling beside her, relieved but shaken. "What just happened in there?" I asked breathlessly. "I don't know," she whispered, eyes wide, "but they're not gone." We stood there, breathless, glancing at each other in confusion, fear making our hearts pound. And then I heard them. Faint whispers in the air, lingering like a distant song, echoing the puzzle left unsolved. What had we just escaped, and what was waiting just beyond the reach of the light? I had survived, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness still loomed, ready to strike again. Even though I had escaped that house, deep inside, I knew I would never escape the whispers. They would haunt me forever, asking questions that might never be answered,